Ooh, necklace.
Hello, family. It's Rosalind again. So, you know what that means. That means it's time for real talk now. The sister circle. And I say sister circle. Welcome to our sister circle. For in humanity, we have a role. Our threads of lives have woven to connect our kindred souls. Our paths have crossed in perfect timing. Around us, the stars are aligning. Our gifts together mingle in harmony, abundance. Can you feel the energetic tingle? A movement amongst us, a revolution. Dare I say, together we bring a resolution. The beating of our hearts in rhythm, in intention, trust, and vision. The hate, the war, the blunder. It is this that will bring us asunder. Sisters of the wise earth, let's lift the shift, the intention of our world, and let love, truth, hope unfurl. Uplift our spirits, freedom, a dance, a twist, a twirl. Wash frothy waves across our souls, rays of sun upon us, our authentic virtues extolled in connection and synchronicity. There is oh so much more for us to be. Take the soil into your hands and engage the healing of our lands. Lay down in the grasses and leaves. Tune into the rhythm as you breathe. Amongst nature, the trees, the horses, the birds, the wisdom of the animals requires no words. Sit in wonder, quiet and peace. Embody the powerful release. Sister, tune into our conscious flow, our interwoven energies aglow. In our growing numbers, we share a calling to step up and lead as a new world is dawning. Poem by Cami Gilner. Yes, love it. Family, a sister circle is a beautiful gathering of women connecting, sharing, and celebrating life. The experience shared, those experiences are sometimes good and sometimes not so good. But no matter what occurs, the goal is to stand firm and support each other through it. Miss Karla, what I want you is to please introduce yourself to the family as we talk about your sister circle.
Thank you so much. Oh, I am compelled. I am blown away by what you just shared, both your personal reflections and that poem. That was incredible. Hashtag spoken word artist right here. Um, amazing. My name is Karla Aghedo. I was born Karla Hardy and married a beautiful man from West Africa, Nigeria, September 15th of 2012. And that's how I got the name Aghedo. Pleased with that name, joyful with that name. And I maintained my middle name, Joyce, because I inherited that as a gift from my mom. So Karla Joyce Aghedo, I'm thrilled to be joining you from Houston, Texas, where my family has lived since August of 2017. I am an attorney by trade. Been practicing for almost 13 years. And I'm an executive wellness mindset coach to professional women reclaiming their power through wellness. And I work as the founder and CEO of Houston Wellness Workshops for Women. I bring you greetings from the Fifth Ward Church of Christ in Houston, Texas. What else can I tell you? I'm ready for some real talk now.
All right, now, as you can see, she's a boss too. She failed to mention that, okay, because she's doing the thing, okay? All right. So we're going to have a conversation, as I always say. We're going to start from where it all began, and that beginning is you. You have
Mm,
biological sisters,
mhm,
biological sisters, very close knit family,
mhm,
and obtaining your identity in a very close knit family is
mhm,
sometimes key
mhm,
as you go in life. Tell me about that.
mhm. Yes, so I was privileged to be born into a clan of three biological sisters and my little brother. My little brother was born 10 and a half years after the twins, whereas my sisters and I were all born exactly a year apart. My parents had four girls in 3 years because there are twins right behind me. So I grew up as the quintessential middle child, had an older sister in front of me blazing the trail, and two little sisters behind me who I felt responsible for protecting and guiding in the process. And when my brother came along and I was 11 and a half, he just got four moms basically who smothered him, spoiled him, and but we had already been really socialized in a lot of ways around our roles and our identity. So when I think about the sister circle, right, think first about the sister circle that I was born with. And I feel right there in the middle and just drew a ton of confidence from being in that circle.
Okay. I love it. I love it. One thing I often say, see, I don't understand the girl life like that, the sister life. I don't have any sisters. I got a bunch of brothers, five to be exact. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So I love it when I hear of not just the fact that the sisters are raised in a household together, but the closeness. I love it. It can dictate,
Yeah.
it dictates how you respond to women
Yes.
as you are continuing in life. So I have learned as I've gotten older to
Hmm.
respond and communicate and basically to be around women
Yeah.
because, like I said,
Absolutely.
that wasn't a part of my training. Okay, I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. Okay, so your parents, beautiful,
Hmm.
beautiful. I
Hmm.
do know that part.
Hmm.
The parents
Hmm.
were very supportive, but
Hmm.
at a point in life, sometimes even though parents are supportive, we still need to get our sea legs. Okay,
Yep.
and you
Yep.
had to do some things. Even going to law school, there were some choices that you had to make that help you get those sea legs, and maybe was not always the most popular with everyone in the family because, again,
Absolutely.
the family is close knit. Tell me about
Yep.
that.
Absolutely. So I have to say, to your point about whether we have this comfort around women, right? I just realized when you were speaking that that was a privilege that I had to really always trust other women by default. And I think it's because I had a beautiful, amazing mama who loved me, and I had those three sisters, right? And so when I looked around me, I had a ton of confidence, because these people are my sister circle, and they're doing it, and they love me, and I think they're great, so I can pretty much do anything, right? And I did take a lot of confidence from that. I also took a lot of confidence from my dad. I think of all of us, I'm probably the most like him. I look like him, talk like him, in so many ways. I work and play like him. And I identified with him a lot. And so in a lot of ways he was, central figure, best friend, biggest influence on me for sure coming up as a child. And so when you talk about finding your sea legs and creating your identity, so much of my identity was because I was being affirmed in a lot of ways, by my dad and that relationship with him, and I honestly believe every little girl needs a good relationship with her dad. She needs a relationship with her dad, right? And I know for so many they don't have that.
Yeah.
I get that. But if there's a dad paying attention to this conversation, he needs to know how pivotal his role is in that little girl's life,
Yeah.
right? And if there's a woman listening to this conversation who could have a relationship with her dad, I want you to double down. I want you to do the brave thing. I want you to reach out. I want you to invest in that relationship. And I know that some of those things are really hard to talk about, hard to think about, right? But there's something there. No matter what's happened in the past, there is something there. So
That's right.
you mentioned you mentioned finding those sea legs. And for me, because that relationship was so pivotal and so important to me, I was very concerned about making sure I made decisions that pleased him, you
I love
know.
it.
But I remember one thing, and hopefully he's okay hearing this one. From early on in our childhood, my dad said lawyers are educated liars. Oh, from early on, y'all. But somehow early on, I also wanted to be a lawyer.
Mm. Hmm.
So, and I think it was those who were telling me, oh, you have a keen sense of justice. You don't mind speaking up for yourself. I was speaking up for myself on the playground,
Hmm.
at school and with my cousins and, right. So early on, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer, but I felt like I could not say that, right? Because my dad, who I admired so much, said lawyers are educated liars,
Wow.
right? So, for all these years, I was talking about becoming a pediatrician. That seemed like a safe bet. Um,
Wow.
and yeah, I didn't want to just say this is who I want to be. This is what I want to be. But finally, going into college and definitely in the middle of college, I decided this is what I've always wanted. This is what I'm going to do. I even changed my major, in the middle of my second year, to just double down on getting what I thought would be the educational background that I needed to get into a great law school.
Wow.
Yeah, so switching to be a history and sociology major, very unpopular. People are like, what you gonna do with that? Right? But I recognized that that would both serve my heart and what I was interested in, and also be a great course of study to prepare me for what I really wanted to do. And then when it was time to decide where I wanted to go to law school, Dad had an opinion there too. And
Looking out for the baby.
he was looking out. It was looking out. Shout out to Dad. Okay.
Hmm.
Right. But I think it's so important for us as people and as women in particular, right, to stake our claim to what it is we really want, what our heart desires,
Yeah.
right? Figure out how to do that respectfully, right?
Yeah.
Preserve the relationship, right? But also preserve yourself
Yeah.
by being honest and clear and heading in the direction that serves your heart.
That's right. Now
Yeah.
I want to go back just a little bit, okay? Because I understand there was a little a quartet too.
Oh,
Okay,
yes.
speak to
Yes.
me of that because even in a quartet, okay, sometimes some may be more of the front person, sometimes some
Mhm.
in the back, and with
Yes.
sisters again. How did that right there work as well? Because still, you that's again about having showing your own identity. Tell me how
Yep.
was that?
Absolutely. Oh man. So first of all, um, another shout out to my amazing parents. My mom was a classically trained pianist. And if she had not gone to Harvard and got a chemistry degree, right, she wanted to be a concert pianist, right?
Mm,
So a really strong command of music, beautiful ear, a creative at heart.
mm.
And my dad at the time did not trust his singing abilities at all, right? But he married the right girl. So they together had a vision to create this gospel singing group. And we actually didn't always sing gospel. We were a quartet, and we had some versatility that was largely gospel.
Mm-hmm.
But from ages 2, 3, and 4, we were singing together on stages. I like to say all over, but I guess mostly in the Midwest, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, did a summer tour all the way to California in 1994. Right? But that was a real gift that was given to us, to both use our talents, develop those talents, and then leverage those talents in ministry. And so, very, very early on, we felt like, I felt like we had a role in sharing the gospel. We
Love
had
it.
a role in advancing the kingdom. And I also think that's another thing that's really important for kids,
Yeah.
that they take ownership
Yeah.
of their part and a role in sharing the truth,
That's right.
you know?
That's right.
Yeah. So,
That's right.
but in the circle, right? I can't say it was always peace, right? My sister Karen was the oldest, and my parents called me and Karen big girls. Okay. Never mind that Karen was born a year and 16 days before me. And never mind the twins were born a year and 2 days after me. Okay. There wasn't that much space between us. But me and Karen were the big girls, and Risa and Kim were the little girls. And somehow I got assigned to Risa, and Kim got assigned to Karen. And so I was responsible for taking care of Clarissa, looking out for her, protecting her, speaking up for her. And it's just kind of funny, I put another pin here for some of the things that we're doing, as parents or as mentors, even as teachers, that's truly having an impact on our kids,
Yeah.
that lasts for a lifetime.
Yeah.
It really does.
That's right.
Um, we talked about finding your sea legs and staking your claim. Risa was my baby to take care of, you know, and in so many ways, I might have suffocated her sometimes, in my efforts to lead and take care of her. And I remember her moments of staking her claim and telling me, "You are not the boss of me."
Mm-hmm.
I remember my tears, of realizing, you know, that my influence over Clarissa wasn't the biggest and the best and the most, right? And then on the other side of that, admiring her so much for the woman that she became and has become and is becoming, right?
Love it.
So just another one of those moments where it's like, yes, you are a person of influence, you have impact, and your impact matters, right? But
Mm-hmm.
then being ready and willing to like let go, right?
Yeah.
And trust that that individual's relationship with God is preeminent,
Yeah.
and that's what's going to govern, and they're going to be okay.
That's right.
Anyway.
And that's even a lesson for us as we walk our journey alone in Christ. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Even more
Hmm.
so, we're the same thing. Is that you're married, you have children, you still
Hmm.
have family, all these your friends and everything. But that relationship is the most important that's going to take
Hmm.
you throughout your life. And
Hmm.
that's the
Hmm.
I'm glad you said that. That's a powerful thing to, because sometimes we forget
Hmm.
because we fall in
Hmm.
love and we had the babies and
Yep.
but yeah, that
Yep. Yep.
relationship.
Yep.
So those clear lines, okay,
Hmm. Hmm.
differentiating
Hmm.
in the family. Tell me about those clear lines today, because you all are all doing great things and you're independent. You have your
Amen.
own identity. Tell me about that now.
Mhm. Yeah. No, I'm so, so, so grateful. Yeah, I think I'm gonna start with my little brother, right, who will be 30 next March of 2024. And the latest from him is he's daily posting scriptures from Proverbs, right? So we don't talk all day. We don't talk even most days, right? I don't always know exactly where in the world he is, but that's my little sign that he is headed in a direction, that brings us joy,
Yeah,
right? And who knows how God is going to continue to write his story.
I love
Um,
it.
and it hasn't always been easy. It hasn't always been perfect. But I'm inspired. Like,
Yeah.
oh, the third out there posting your proverbs. I love it, right? Um, my sister Karen is an engineer at Con Edison in New York, and raising four beautiful children, spread between ages 3 and 18. So that's a busy house and has its own challenges, raising kids across decades, if you will, right? My sister Clarissa is a professor at UNC Chapel Hill. So that little one I was telling you about, I say little, right? Just a year younger than me. She's a big girl now,
Yeah, she's a
right?
big girl now,
Um,
yes.
she's she's married. She's a professor in pharmacology at UNC. And I saved Miss Kimberly for last, not
My
because she's
girl.
last in birth order, not because she's last in birth order, but because she is the surprise that has become really a best friend of mine, honestly, a real best friend,
Love it.
And I wouldn't take anything from the relationships that I have with any of my sisters, you know. But I have to honor the fact that Kim and I were not that close and familiar with one another in our childhood.
Yeah.
We were
Yeah.
in the same household, but Kim was living her own life. She
Independent.
had
Miss Independent.
independent, yes. And to learn today about all the
Hmm.
different habits and practices that she had for herself to get things done, to keep herself going and manage her schedule, right? And to have done that, excuse me, you know, at 8 and 12 and 15, right? Like, is incredible to develop that, you
Yeah.
know, my own private practices of self-direction, right? But anyway, I laugh because yeah, I feel like Kim and Karen were doing whatever they were doing because she was assigned to Kim. And me and Risa, I was taking care of her, knew her well, right? And Karen and I were big girls, so we had to have our conferences of, our big girl strategy, right? But Kim and I, we didn't, I don't feel like knew each other as well and understood each other as well. But
Wow.
today, this person is one of my closest friends.
It's
She
beautiful.
really is.
It's beautiful.
She is Dr. Kimberly Hardy. Just defended her dissertation last summer.
Yeah.
She is a professor at Antioch University, as well as a Spanish teacher at a high school in Pearl, Mississippi,
Wow.
right outside of Jackson. She's incredible. Entrepreneur, book writer. She's my book coach. You
Yeah.
know, everything we've put out thus far, Kim has been behind it,
That's right.
both for me and for my boys.
Hmm.
She's just a brilliant light. She
Yeah.
is a brilliant light. So anyway, all my siblings are incredible. Okay. But I thought I'd share that because it's another one of those opportunities to have a new story, right? Um, we got to keep living.
That's right.
And sometimes we get stuck with an old story, right? And then we allow that old story to govern new facts, govern new information, govern new situations and new circumstances,
Yeah.
right? People grow, develop, evolve, and change. Why don't we allow the story to grow, develop, evolve, and change?
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Right. So
Love
anyway,
it.
shout out to Kim.
And I gotta. I have to again shout out to your parents
Yeah.
because family, y'all heard that, and she's not bragging. That is not what she's doing. She is just letting y'all know that her parents, they did that
Hmm.
because they invested
Yeah.
in their lives. And that's a
Yep.
beautiful thing. Okay. All right, let's go a
Absolutely.
little further.
Your face does that. I get nervous.
Yeah. Growing up with your sister circle. And these are a group of women, then girls, but now women, y'all have continued this circle of friendship from
Yeah.
childhood. You
Yeah.
all went from being literally being single to married. Now that's a
Yeah.
journey too, to be able to keep those friendships, because sometimes, let's admit it, we sometimes have different paths, different interests, different
Hmm.
walks as we get older, and sometimes we leave people behind. We
Yeah.
outgrow those relationships, and that's not to say that you're better. Sometimes evolving, which you said, the evolving,
Yep.
the interests are no longer the same. Okay, tell me
Yep.
about that and how you all cultivated that. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do think that I'm going to call them some of the quiet years, right, in
Mm-hmm.
our lives, going through college and graduate school, where the majority of our interaction was at Thanksgiving, or at graduations, because we were all in so many different places. Karen went to
Mm-hmm.
undergrad in Michigan. I went to undergrad in Iowa. Twins went to undergrad in Jackson, Mississippi, and then grad school, right? Karen ends up in New York, married, praise God. She celebrated 20 years of marriage last year.
Blessing.
You know, yeah, right. So New York is a hike from Houston, Texas, or um,
Literally, yes.
yeah, right, right, right. We had a lot more opportunities to, be close when I lived in Washington, D.C., and I could
Yeah.
get on the train, and she had the only grandbaby, only niece or nephew, excuse me, and so I was there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to that point, like we had to put in some intentional efforts to maintain our relationships,
Mm-hmm.
and to consider them valuable. And I'm so sorry, I have a tickle. I
I
know the
understand.
coughing doesn't sound good on the screen, but I have to give credit to Karen. 4 years ago, 5 years, 4 years ago,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Karen um, initiated our sisters having a mastermind group. Okay. So you talk about the sister circle, and we got to go back into the middle of my story. Okay.
Okay.
But this sister circle that I was born with, that God gave me, right,
Mm-hmm.
comes back together under the leadership of Karen, who, by the way, my parents called the straw boss.
The
Okay.
Starbucks.
Just for the nuggets of of interest. Karen was the straw boss. Okay,
Okay.
the
Okay.
oldest. Yes. Karen leads us in January of 2019 to come together and create a mastermind that was just us four girls.
Okay.
You talk about game changer.
Wow.
For sure, we were busy. We were
Mm-hmm.
in our lives, head down, doing the thing,
Mm-hmm.
and very possibly could could have grown further apart in this season of change and being married and new jobs and new careers and having kids and all that. So now we have this mastermind that meets once a week. And from that mastermind, Risa shares with us, we need to write a book. And everybody needs to start writing their story.
Yeah.
And that is really powerful. It's really important. We were like, okay, Risa, whatever. We don't want to write, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But we
Okay.
stayed in the mastermind, right? We kept showing up week after week. Kim writes a book. Okay. From this mastermind, I start a new business. From this mastermind, Risa moves from one university to another, going from a really good university to one of the best public universities in the United States, right?
Wow. Yeah.
From this mastermind, Karen goes from talking about it to actually enrolling in her MBA program, right? It was pivotal.
I love
for
it.
her to lead us in this intentional practice of coming together as a sister circle with accountability every single week.
Wow.
Set our intentions, followed an agenda. That wasn't too tight. It allowed for plenty of room to speak and grow. But we knew what we would have to give an account for. We knew what questions were going to be asked of us, right?
Yeah.
And from that, dreams became reality. So
Wow.
yeah, I'm grateful for that sister circle that I was born
Yeah.
with. They inspire me. I admire each of them. And I recognize my privilege. I do.
Wow. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay.
Yeah.
So with your that was went back a little bit to your sisters, correct? I just want to make sure.
Yep.
Okay. Let me okay.
Yep.
So the sisterly bond, the sisterhood
Yep.
bond, okay, still
Mm.
with the unbiological sisters, I'm gonna call them.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
No less important though. I mean, right now, I
Yes.
mean, I'm not saying that your biological sisters, that's a beautiful thing, yes. But those
Hmm.
unbiological sisters, okay,
Yep.
the bond is
Yep.
so crucial because usually we pick those sisters or those relationships because we have a commonality that supersedes the commonality we have in our family. Okay.
Yep.
And you
Yep.
said, okay, tell me again, you said the different places you all went to school. You were in DC. Somebody was in, uh, I can't
Okay.
remember what.
So yes. So for undergrad, Karen left first and went to Michigan.
Gotcha.
We were living in Tyler, Texas, and Karen went to Michigan, which is about 24 hours away.
Wow.
I went to undergrad in Iowa, about 14 hours away.
Wow.
And the twins, a year after me, went to undergrad in Jackson,
Okay.
Mississippi, about 6 hours away.
Okay.
Okay. So
Okay.
we're
I
all
got
spread out.
you. Okay.
After college, Karen goes to New York. After college, I went to Washington, D.C. And after college, Kim went to UNC Chapel Hill,
Yeah.
and Clarissa went to Washington State.
I got you. Okay. So that's the biological. Now with
Yep.
those
Yep.
unbiologicals, did y'all?
Yep.
How was the distance with them as far
Yep.
as school? Because everyone went to college as well, correct? And you were saying about the
Yep.
twin. Where were they
So
located geographically, too?
so I like to talk about this sister circle as the sister circle I was born with,
Okay.
the sister circle I was gifted,
Mm.
and the sister circle that I'm building.
Oh,
All right.
love it.
So
You see
we
that
we
progression, y'all? Y'all see that,
okay. We,
right?
we
Love it.
talk plenty about the ones I was born with. I love them. I could talk about them all day. I'll tell you about the ones that I was gifted.
Gifted. The
Yes.
unbiologicals. That's what I call it. I
Yes.
love it. Okay.
This started in September of 2005
Gotcha.
when
Okay.
I moved to Washington D.C., took my first job out of undergrad. Okay, and first thing I did was find my church home. Right, I was still visiting. I say church home, so I found the church to visit. Right, I visited three different places: the place where my
Mm-hmm.
parents got married, the place where my dad was a youth minister, and the place where I could walk to from work.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Get to the place that I could walk to from work. All right. And one night I overhear this sister talking about the mother of someone I went to undergrad with.
Mm. Okay. Okay.
I overheard the last name and I turned around. I said, "So sorry, did you just say such and such's last name?" She goes, uh, "Yeah."
You know we do.
I was like, "Oh my gosh, that is the mother of one of my best friends from undergrad."
Wow.
And she gave me a ride home that night. Okay. Almost an hour away. Right. And from then on, we were fast friends, sisters in
Okay.
Christ. She gave me a ride almost everywhere, concerning church and
Mm-hmm.
fellowship and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of September, I learned that the lady that I found on Craigslist, right, to be my roommate in Washington, D.C., where I was sleeping on the air mattress in her apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, her name wasn't actually on the lease. Okay.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So I feel like on Tuesday, she told me we needed to figure out how to get me on the lease by Friday. She didn't think she'd be able to qualify. We needed to work to figure this out. It's like, oh, what? Oh. So this whole time, my mind is spinning. I got to figure out how to get on a lease. I've never really done this before. I don't have any experience. This is my first time having a job in a real place out of undergrad.
Mm-hmm.
I get to church on Wednesday night. Okay.
Wow.
And I'm, like, oh, I'm trying to figure this out, trying to figure this out. And I overhear somebody say, it's so hard to find a good roommate. I said, oh, I'm so sorry. Did you say you're looking for a roommate?
Look at the spirit. Look at that spirit.
By Friday, I was sleeping on the couch. And then we signed a lease with a third girl in October, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so those two became my fast friends.
Wow.
Okay. Um, so much so that 7 years later, we're all in each other's weddings. You
Mm.
know, 10 years later, we're all having babies, and visiting each other in the hospital, right? Those two women are still critical in the sister circle that I say I was gifted,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, because I could not have done what God did with that.
Yeah.
There's no good reason, right, for me to
Yeah.
have overheard her talking about somebody I knew, and for me to overhear this other one talking about finding a roommate when I needed one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
um, and then for them to be willing, because I think that's the other piece is there are
Yeah.
opportunities all around us
Yeah.
to connect with people who might be our next best gifted blessing,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
But we look past it. You look past it.
Yeah.
We're either moving too fast or it doesn't fit picture that we had of how it would go, or, ain't nobody in my family ever done it like that before. So,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I quite literally still count these women as two of my very best friends on the planet 18 years later,
I love it.
you know. And the other piece not to forget is that I met both of them at the 13th and Irving Street Church of Christ in Washington, D.C., you
Wow.
know. So, I know this audience comes from all over the place, but, I can't help but share every time when you center yourself around God and his people,
Yeah.
right? The resources come, blessings flow,
Yeah.
and the relationships hold you up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you listen.
Yes.
That's the important part too. Sometimes when these blessings come, we don't always recognize them.
Mhm.
But you all recognize because it was not by
Mhm.
happenstance. There's no way
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
was just something that happened. God strategically put those things, people right there when he needed to. And you listened.
Absolutely.
And then
Yes.
too, you mentioned about you all were in the same congregation, 13th
Mhm.
Street, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
Now,
Mhm.
often the young people, y'all do the ministry, okay?
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
singles ministry. Were you all
Mhm.
active in that? And if you were, how was that part? Or did you all find your mate in other ways?
Mhm. Mhm. It will be a yes and a yes, a yes and a yes, a yes. We were very active in the singles ministry, also active in the he ain't never gonna come ministry, okay? Which means that we showed up consistently. We helped organize, we were
Mm-hmm.
faithfully there, right? And we were also for a good number of years in the like whatever, this one is that and that one is that and it's ridiculous and it's never gonna happen, a lot of negativity, right? A
Right,
lot
right.
of negativity, right? On men in the church and black men and all this, right? But jokingly, we drew a lot of support from one another. So while you're single and you really desire to be married, but it just doesn't seem like it's happening. I think it's really, really important, again, to double down on your faith,
Yeah.
right? In relationships with people who are going somewhere and doing something, right? So one of these close friends of mine came from California, born and raised, to Washington, D.C., to work for a government agency, and to build her life and career, right? She wasn't playing games.
Yeah.
She was at church and at work. And I'm not saying she was boring. She also explored restaurants and all other things, but having those priorities and having that clarity about what's most important, right? This other young lady born in South Carolina moved to Washington, D.C. to get her PhD at Howard University,
Mm-hmm.
right? Her
Yeah.
first stop was the church as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's who they were. That's who I was. Could have found other friends, could have found myself, hanging out more with a different circle, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I chose, by God's grace, I was gifted as well, a group of people who were centered
Yeah.
around God, His word, and His will.
That's
It
beautiful.
doesn't change the fact that sometimes when humans get together, right, Satan shows up too to hang out.
Yeah.
So the spirit
Well.
of competition, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The spirit of divisiveness,
Yeah.
the comparing yourself one to another. I mean, the reality is that all shows up to the sister circle as well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it can be so toxic, and it can create a lot of drama and wounds that you got to heal from.
Yeah.
I picked up wounds. I picked up wounds,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I've had to heal from and some that I'm still healing from, for sure. But
Yeah.
I tell you what, there's this other school of thought that says, I can't hang out with women because they're this and they're that. And, women can't be together too much because you know, we don't do this or we not like that because you know how women are. You know, that's pervasive conversation. It feels like among the church,
Yeah.
among Black women,
Yeah.
and I want to say right here on this public platform, I feel like it is a form of misogyny, which
Mm.
is which is the definition of hatred and disgust for women.
Wow. That's
And I
something.
truly believe, yes, I believe that it has been so permissible
Mm-hmm.
for people to be misogynistic that women have now adopted it
Wow.
and we believe it.
Wow.
And then not only do we believe it, but we then proselytize it. We share it with others.
Wow.
These negative, undermining, destructive, and disruptive beliefs about women,
Yeah.
and as a result, we don't get the power of the sister circle because we're always suspicious with side eye about what it means to have one.
That's right. I love that.
You know,
I never
yeah,
thought about that, but that is true. You heard
yeah.
me say, first thing I said, I grew up with a bunch of brothers, so I didn't know about women. I've
Mm-hmm,
learned, and it did change my mindset. But you know what I had to do? Pluck all that, what I had been
mm-hmm,
thinking all those years. I
mm-hmm,
put it away. Is it
mm-hmm,
still sometimes a challenge? Yes, it is. It still
mm-hmm,
is a challenge
mm-hmm,
sometimes. But that
mm-hmm,
is true. We have to
mm-hmm.
stop that self muted negative talk, negative
Mhm,
talk. And I say self
mhm,
talk because if you're talking about another woman, you're speaking of yourself as well, because
mhm.
we are
Yeah.
all women. I love
Mhm,
that.
mhm, mhm,
I never heard that before. I never thought about that
mhm,
before. Okay,
mhm, mhm.
so
Yeah.
let uh, let's go a little further now.
Mhm.
That's the current, the married life, creating. That's still about creating your own sister circle. Okay, and I
Yes,
say
yes.
that because life again is about progression. You said that progression, and we
Yeah.
all can add to our life by taking the good, even some of the not negative, the down times without the bells and the whistle, if we truly want to benefit from life. You can't just take the
Mhm.
bad, the good. That's not even
Mhm.
realistic. And actually,
Mhm.
people who only want to focus on good, I'm concerned about them. I say that often. I'm concerned because if something really hard happens, I'm concerned. You got to look at all aspects of life in order to be well rounded. Okay, tell me about
Mhm.
that. Talk to me about that.
Listen, you just reminded us of why your show is called Real Talk Now, because the real is that it's not always pleasant, positive, pretty, beautiful, right? Peachy. It's not, you know, no matter how much you try to stay grounded, focused, right? There will be weather. You can't control it. It's going to rain, it's going to thunder, it might even flood. Oh, yeah, that happened to us
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
in,
yeah,
in
yeah.
August of 2017. Yeah,
Oh,
we
bless
were
her. Bless
displaced,
her.
just displaced by Harvey and lived in a hotel for 7 months. Nothing we could have done about that. Not one thing,
Wow.
right? Um, to try to pretend like it's not there or not part of the story or not hard is ridiculous, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, as I said, I have a sister circle that I was born with. I have a sister circle that I was gifted, and that circle grew. I shared about those two sisters who I adore, who are still a critical part of my life. And there were other women from that season, what I call the Washington, D.C. season, that became engrafted into the circle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Both through the singles ministry, through our singing group, which we started from 13th and Irving. And when we moved from that congregation, people went all different kind of places. We stayed together as a singing group.
Love it.
I would drive from Charlottesville, where I was in law school, to practice with the group and keep singing. So that was all a part of that. And again, the circle of sisters grew from that. Um, and then there was the Met Man season, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was really interesting how I met my husband, these sisters. So
Mm-hmm.
I went off to law school and I told them they need to live in the same house so they can save money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, they were roommates with another sister. There were a couple of different roommates over the years, different houses or whatever. But I came back for a birthday party on the day after my last law school class at these sisters' houses. I mean, at their house where they were roommates. And that's where I met my husband.
Oh, beautiful.
um, May 1st, 2010.
Okay.
My other close friend met her husband the end of that month. You know, the other one I think met her husband um, that fall. Right? It was just so interesting how we moved from the he ain't never gonna come to the ooh he's so cute ministry, right? And picked up some more baggage in that process, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we all had ideas of how that would happen and how that would work, and everybody had a plan. Like, you can't get engaged, and if you have to be dating at least 2 years, before you can get engaged, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and you have to be engaged for at least a year. You got to get to know him. I wouldn't do this, and I wouldn't do that. Every single one of my friends who had these rules met their husbands after I met mine. And every single one of them who had these rules married their husband before I married mine.
They was like,
We're
girl, that's okay. That wasn't for me. That's too funny.
seriously,
Wow.
and they had opinions about this man from West Africa, Nigeria in particular, because you know how they are, and da da da, right? So I picked up some baggage from that, some hurtful, painful things, tried to break up with my husband, try to give him his ring back, all that, because it was very challenging to be someone who has had these strong relationships and these close-knit relationships and these people who've had a lot of influence over me, and they're saying, because my auntie had this situation and my cousin had that situation, and you know how they are. And I just got a 419 email from one of them the other right? You know,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, a lot of things based in stereotype,
Yeah.
you know. But there's this beautiful quote that says, problem with stereotypes is not that they are untrue, but is that they are incomplete,
I
right?
love that.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Mm-hmm.
not, say that again.
It's not that they are untrue, but that they are incomplete.
I love that. So I'm
Yeah.
going to tell you what I'm hearing you say is that we meet someone or we seek something at face value instead of
Mm-hmm.
trying to dig deeper and trying
Mm-hmm.
to see what it really is, we keep it at the surface.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're
Yes,
saying? I
absolutely,
love that. I
absolutely.
love that.
Oh,
Hmm.
you, and there's so much, there's so much, um, footnotes. I respect the fact that it seems like I'd like to take the hard path. Like pick some of the hardest projects on the planet and I take them and make them mine. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, my husband is a hard project.
Mm.
And I've known that since day one.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I am getting some of the sweetest fruit from taking this one on.
All right now.
Okay.
Okay.
You heard it here. You heard it here. But I say that because that was part of the story too, and it was part of some of the wounds, right? That
Hmm.
came, right?
Yeah.
And to those listening, like respectfully, I love you, I adore you, I appreciate you, I value you, right? And I know that many of the things that were said were just an attempt to protect me,
Yeah.
you know, um, to love me good, right? And the story is not being done written. We're writing our story every single day, and we certainly make mistakes, and nothing is perfect,
Yeah.
about me, about my husband, about our marriage,
Yeah.
right? Um, but that was one of the things that was challenging, right, in that sister circle was getting, from oh, I just met him and he's super cute to down the aisle and to the altar, you
Hmm.
know, and having to navigate all the thoughts and all the opinions in the middle. So if there was
Mm.
one thing I could do differently, right, it would be to take in less of other people's thoughts and opinions. I've always believed and run back to the scripture that says, in the midst of much counsel, there is wisdom, right? Because it's there. That is the truth. But in so many ways, when you connect that scripture to a people pleaser,
Mm.
right,
Hmm.
what you get is somebody taking in everybody's opinion
Yeah.
and having trouble sorting because somebody's going to be disappointed.
That's right. It's called
Go ahead.
leaving and cleaving for a reason.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And like you
Yeah.
just said that, and people can have their opinion. They're gonna always have their opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that what you said that you don't have to take everything in. That can be heavy. That's
Mm-hmm.
heavy. You know,
Mm-hmm.
a reformed people pleaser
Mm-hmm.
right here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You heard I said
Mm-hmm.
reformed, right? Okay.
Amen.
Because it was, but it took a many years to realize I can't.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm a true believer now in my life, in my stage in life, that I have to be able to say or want to say yes with my heart, not
Mm-hmm.
just because it's the thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't easy for me getting there because I was always the one, and I take it that you are that person too, that people came to. You were the
Yeah.
one who
Absolutely.
put out the fires, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the only reason I didn't raise my hand when you raised your hand is because I can't yet claim to be a recovered people pleaser. I'm still in my recovery program.
It takes some, but I'm almost 60, so this took. We talking some late. This has been the last 10 years, maybe. It took some time now, you know.
Amen.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and that's the thing about life. No matter how old you are, we still can learn lessons
Mm-hmm.
if you're willing.
Absolutely.
It's always a
Yeah.
lesson to learn. It's always a lesson to
Mm-hmm.
learn. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now,
Yep.
law school's decision.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
once we get exposed to different things in life, it leads to other things, okay? So
Mm-hmm.
tell me what law school was first. That was that first, well, undergrad first. Then it
Yeah.
was law school was another accomplishment or hurdle you got
Mm-hmm.
over, right? Once
Yep.
you got in law school, started practicing, what other business ventures stemmed from law school? Because after you're being exposed, it's hard just to sit in it.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So in law school, I spent a lot of time with women of color. There was a group called WALK. So basically, the Women of Color group that I was a president of. And hearing different challenges, so many of those women being concerned about what it would mean to be in a male-dominated career. You
Mm-hmm.
know, for many of us already, the statistics aren't great for finding a husband, when you're a highly educated, high achieving woman of color, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we had a
Mm-hmm.
lot of conversation around that. If I desire to be married and have kids, how am I going to balance that with my career?
Yeah.
All of that. And so my leadership in that space started there yet again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Creating sister circles at the University of Virginia School of Law. And then I carried that into my practice. I
Wow.
was at a global law firm as a corporate attorney in Washington, D.C. Didn't realize I was doing it because I thought I just had my head down doing my work. And that was a good portion of what it was, billing crazy hours, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, sleeping under my desk, all that. But I was building that sister circle with doing these one-on-one coaching, not realizing that I was coaching, right? But
Mm-hmm.
the helping to mentor women, helping to recruit women, helping to guide them through their journey, and then needing guides above me, right?
Wow.
So we moved to Houston in August of 2017. I moved to the Houston office of my firm. And then my sister started that mastermind
Mm-hmm.
in January of 2019. And me talking about what I had experienced in a corporate, predominantly male, predominantly white environment really gave birth to the need. Well, seeing the need for what it was and how I might be able to fill it.
Wow.
So in August of 2019, excuse me, started Houston Wellness Workshops for Women, H3W. And the whole goal was to create a new sister circle
Wow.
of
Yeah.
women who another, in high stakes, high stress careers, you know, support them in mind, body, and spirit. So I'm doing this, as a mom of two now, at that point of August of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing it in a new city. I got a new church family. I'm a mid-career woman, but with no network in my career here in Houston.
Mm.
So that's where that building my sister circle came in, you know, both starting this business to serve these women and
Mm-hmm.
also to stake my claim in a new city, and build a network around myself. Because I left the mommy circle that was my whole blessing. We went from the singles ministry to the married ministry to the married with one, then married with two, you know, all celebrating all the birthdays together, being a huge support for one another.
Mm-hmm.
And then we moved to Houston, and I'm having to rebuild so much of that, you know.
That'd be
So
scary.
I'm, yeah, right. So I'm building my sister circle both through my business, where I'm sharing with women like this is part of how we win is having a strong sister circle,
Mm.
right? Other women we can talk to, we can listen to, in your marriage, right?
Yeah.
You need women who you can talk to about that,
Yeah.
you know, who have your best interests at heart.
Yeah.
In your career, you need other women you can talk to about that, because the experience is different. You can get a lot of great game from men, right? You need to be able to identify with other women. As a mom, as a mom, right? You need other women that you can talk to
Yeah,
about that and what's going on and how to do it. So
that's right.
that's what business is about. That's what my life is about. That's what my spiritual energy is about.
Yeah,
Is helping us create fellowship and community,
love it.
starting with that sister circle.
Love it.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah,
now you are a wife. You say your mom,
yep.
a career time, a career woman times several different avenues. Okay, this is your life now. What's next? I mean, some people would say, okay, what? That's enough. Again, life is about progression.
Yeah,
Once we get one place, sometimes we don't want to just sit there because it's about progression. Okay,
yeah,
what's next?
yeah.
What's next for you?
Great question. I would be remiss if I didn't mention I had a pandemic baby in December of 2020.
Blessings, blessings. Them pandemic babies or something.
So I've added a little girl to my crew.
Oh,
I'm super excited to be a mom of this adorable little girl who is
oh,
so sweet, so incredible.
oh, I love it.
Um, and and once again, right, I want to level up my sister circle to set a beautiful example for her, right? I want her and I to have a beautiful relationship, that's not based in toxicity or
Hmm.
control or
Yeah,
competition, right?
yeah.
But I also want to mention here that your mom is a part of your sister circle. And so frequently we overlook her. We got a bunch of baggage with her. We judge her, whatever it is, right? So I didn't want to put out there how important it is for us to get to know her again, give her the opportunity to write a new story with us, build a new friendship with us,
It's different now. You're right.
Yes, yes, to understand her story differently. So I hosted a LinkedIn live series called Gifted this past spring, and I brought my mom on as one of my
Love it.
guests.
Love it.
And to hear her tell her story, her career, all of that, the decisions that she made as a wife, as a mom, as a career woman, it was just like amazing because I was there for so much of it, but to really hear it and understand it as a grown woman now, as a wife and mom myself, it just hit differently.
Yeah,
So if I can leave with anything, I want to encourage you to honor your mom
yeah.
as part of your sister circle. She don't have to be up with all your friends. She don't have to be thrown in the Camaro or whatever for the weekend, But take the time to get to know her and hear her story. Um, and don't miss that opportunity, you
That's
know.
right.
So
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah,
That's beautiful.
yeah,
And we
yeah.
don't look at it like that, as when
Mm-hmm.
as you're right, because my relationship now compared to when I was younger is so different with her.
Yeah.
I'm a
Mm-hmm.
grown up now,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and she has
Mm-hmm.
accepted that, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful thing. And then to hear your mom say, I'm not sure if your mom ever said how proud they are, and the woman that you are, that's the woman they were striving to be.
Mm,
Things like that.
mm,
Yeah, you like, eh?
mhm, mhm,
So though you're right, it's a special time,
mhm.
because that mother daughter relationship, other than Christ, is one of those very special bonds.
Yes,
Other than with your
absolutely.
husband, is a very special bond. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
I agree. All right. So
Yeah.
how can the family get in touch with you? And tell us some of your platforms, because if you don't mind, because you have a number of these. You mentioned these different circles. They may want to join some of these circles. Some of the mommy group,
Yes.
the daughter mommy group, the sisters. You got several things. Just tell us about it.
I love it. Thank you. So you can find me on Facebook as an individual, Karla J. Aghedo. But then also, and you'll see Hardy in parentheses because that is my maiden name. But then also Houston Wellness Workshops for Women is on Facebook. And we have a group, the H3W Chicks as well. So you can follow the page, H3W Houston Wellness Workshops for Women on
Hmm.
Facebook. And I'm also on Instagram, growing on the gram. Um, I hosted a tea time today. I host every Tuesday at 12 noon Central, one
Love it.
o'clock Eastern.
Love it.
That's where I met you. That's where I first
Yeah,
met
I
you.
wish I could still get. I love the tea time, y'all. These are some young women that taught me a thing or two. Okay, that's all I
Oh,
got to say.
well, so I turned 40 this past November. Praise God. Yes,
Hmm.
40 and one coming.
Okay.
Um, but there was a 24-year-old on today,
Oh,
right?
blessing.
Oh, yes, yes. And her insight and her view of the world was expansive. And when she
Yeah.
talked about how she got her first Instagram profile in middle school, I was like, oh gosh. And this is the sign. 'Cause mine was
In
like a
middle
year and a half
school.
ago. Yeah, yeah. Mine was
Listen.
like when I turned 38,
Yeah.
or 39.
They born
You
with the
know,
knowledge. They're born with that knowledge.
yes.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm
Wow.
on the gram. I'm not big on the gram, but I'm there. That's
Hmm.
Karla J. Aghedo. And then I'm also on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I've hidden from LinkedIn many times, but now I'm out. I'm fully there. I'm on Thread, still learning how to do that. I'm on Twitter, but I've never posted one single thing on Twitter, so don't follow me there because I'm not leading you anywhere. Okay. And I'm on TikTok, and I've been talked a couple times.
I love TikTok.
Oh,
Love TikTok.
Karla J. Aghedo over there. Yeah,
Hmm.
Karla J. Aghedo on Instagram and TikTok.
Awesome.
And then finally, sorry, I am now a room tilter with Limitless Minds, which is a mindset platform for the corporate athlete. It was started by Russell Wilson, the NFL quarterback.
Hmm.
His brother Harry, his mindset coach Trevor Moad, who has since passed away, and Harry's business partner DJ. The four of them started this company, and they bring on coaches like myself that they call room tilters. Um, our job is to tilt the room. So we come into meetings with clients like Bristol Myers Squibbs and Johnson, all these other amazing brands, and we are coaching on mindset.
Love it.
Yeah, so that's what I do. I think I covered all the platforms. That's what I'm up
Okay.
to.
All
Yeah,
right.
and I'm
I
just
love it.
grateful.
Love it.
I'm
And
grateful. Go
and
ahead, go
family,
ahead.
if you did not get all of that, because you see this lady's busy. Okay. So if you did not get all of that, you can still reach out to me as well. Okay. On TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Hashtag Real Talk Now Ross. And also on Facebook, Real Talk Now Ross too. I want you all to make it a good one, make it a good one, and make it a good one.